Hello friends! Today we are going to read the book Thea Stilton and the American Dream. So today I have taken up Thea Stilton as we were reading a lot of different authors like Kripala von Kakelfer, The Cave Mice by Jeronimus Stilton Wood, and we have read a Jeronimus Stilton book also. So I wanted a change. So let's begin with Thea Stilton today. So let's begin. Hello! I'm Thea. I'm Geronimo Stilton's sister. As I'm sure you know from my brother's best-selling novels, I'm a special correspondent for the Rodents Gazette, Mouse Island's most famous newspaper. Unlike my Freddy Mouse brother, I absolutely adore traveling, having adventures, and meeting rodents from all around the world. The adventure I want to tell you about begins at Mouseward Academy, the school I went to when I was a young mouseling. I had such a great experience there as a student that I came back to teach a journalism class. When I returned as a grown mouse, I met five really special students: Colette, Nikki, Pamela, Paulina, and Violet. You could hardly imagine five more different mouselings, but they became great friends right away. And they liked me so much that they decided to name their group after me, the Thea sisters. I was so touched by that I decided to write about their adventures. So turn the page to read a famous adventure about the Thea sisters. Colette. She has a passion for clothing and style, especially anything pink. When she grows up, she wants to be a fashion editor. Paulina. Cheerful and kind, she loves traveling and meeting rodents from all over the world. She has a single magic touch when it comes to technology. Violet. She is the bookworm of the group and she loves learning. She enjoys classical music and dreams of becoming a famous violinist. Nikki. She comes from Australia and is very enthusiastic about sports and nature. She loves being outside and is always ready to get up and go. Pamela. She is a great mechanic. Give her a screwdriver and she will fix anything. She loves pizza, which she eats every day, and she loves to cook. Chapter 1. Ready to go. It was dawn at Mouseford Academy. A light summer breeze fluttered through the open window, tickling Colette's nose. The mouselet rolled over in bed and opened her eyes just enough to see the light filtering in from outside. Ugh! Colette sighed. Is it time to get up already? But then she smiled suddenly, sitting straight up in bed. Pam, she called to her roommate. Today's the day. We are finally leaving. But there was no answer. Pam? Colette called out. She peered across the room at the bed next to hers in the semi-darkness. The bed had been perfectly made and the pajamas were neatly folded. Colette noticed the humongous backpacks by the door, packed and ready to go. They were in the exact spot where she and her friend had placed them the previous night. Where would she have gone so early? Colette wondered aloud. Their flight didn't leave until the afternoon. She immediately texted the other Thea sisters. They hadn't seen Pam that morning either. Maybe the excitement of the trip woke her early with a big appetite and she went straight to breakfast, Nikki said when she, Violet and Paulina joined Colette a few minutes later. That could be, Paulina replied, smiling. She's probably waiting for us in the cafeteria right now, ready for a second breakfast. Well, let's go find out if you are right, Colette said. Her friends followed Colette out of the mouselet's bedroom and into the deserted hallway. Then they scurried toward the cafeteria. Summer vacation had started a few days ago and most of the students had already left, so the campus was unusually quiet. The four friends were right outside the cafeteria when they heard a voice from inside. We'll land in Chicago and our road trip will begin from there, Pam squeaked excitedly. Colette, Nikki, Paulina, and Violet stepped into the cafeteria. Pamela had a map of the United States laid out on a table, and she was using cups, saucers, and cutlery to show Craig and Sen the itinerary for their trip. We'll rent a camper and drive across the country from east to west along the famous Route 66, Pamela continued. She pointed at the map with a teaspoon to highlight the route. And after crossing 8 states, we'll arrive at our final destination, Santa Monica, California. Pam, you're here, Colette cried. Pamela's snout lit up when she saw her friends. I'm so sorry I didn't wait for you to have breakfast, she explained hurriedly. But I was too excited to stay in bed. Don't worry, Violet reassured her. That's what we figured. We know you have been dreaming of this trip for years, Nikki added. I can understand why you couldn't sleep any longer, Colette agreed. Who could sleep knowing that the next day would be the beginning of a dream come true? Chapter 2. A Dream Come True. The Thea sisters had hatched the plan for their upcoming adventure on the most famous highway in the United States the previous spring. They had just gone to see a movie together that featured a family traveling on Route 66 in a recreational vehicle. How I'd love to go on a road trip in an RV with my best friends. Pamela sighed as she and her friends came out of the theater. Well, why don't we? Nikki asked. Yes, great idea. Colette nodded and Pamela began excitedly planning the trip later that day. In the months that followed, the five friends planned everything down to the smallest detail, the plane tickets, the route, and the places they would stay. But most of all, they fantasized about the unforgettable sights they would visit. Now that they had landed in Chicago, their journey would finally begin. Or would it? I'm sorry, but your RV isn't ready yet, explained the mouse at the rental counter, where the Thea sisters had booked the vehicle. Our mechanics are finishing the final checkup, the clerk explained. You can come back and pick it up this afternoon. Pamela sighed as she and her friends left the rental office. I can't wait to get my paws on that steering wheel and hit the road. Well, why don't we look at the positive side of things? Nikki suggested. We could visit Chicago. Sure, but it's a big city and we have less than a day to explore, Violet said hesitantly, as she flipped through her tourist guidebook. How will we decide what to see? It's too bad we don't know anyone who lives around here, Colette remarked. If we had friends nearby, they could suggest some can't miss places. Pamela smiled. It's true that we don't have any friends living here, but that doesn't mean we can't get advice from those who know the city well, she squeaked. Colette, Violet, Nikki, and Paulina gave her a puzzled look. But who? They asked in unison. The mice of Chicago, of course, Pamela exclaimed, pointing to the crowded street. Then she turned to Colette. What would you like to see, Coco? She asked. I guess after so many hours on the plane, I would love to stretch my paws a bit outdoors, Colette mused thoughtfully. But I'd also like to see some art. I can't make up my mind. Sounds good, Pamela said. I'm on a mission. She headed toward a nearby hot dog stand, a huge smile on her snout. After a few minutes spent chatting with the two vendors running the stand, she returned to her friends, waving a map of Chicago. According to them, we aren't far from the perfect place to explore the outdoors and see some art. Millennium Park. The five mouselets followed the directions from the hot dog cart vendors and soon found themselves in an immense park between towering skyscrapers and sparkling Lake Michigan. The Thea sisters quickly discovered the famous Cloud Gate, a silver sculpture that mirrors the sky and the city's skyline. They learned that Chicagoans have nicknamed the sculpture the Bean, thanks to its shape. The Thea sisters also loved the unique crown fountain, which consists of two glass towers on either side of a shallow pool of water. Video images of the faces of Chicagoans are projected on the two towers, which are built to create the illusion that water is flowing from the faces' mouths. After spending some time walking among these many sculptures that made the park an open-air art gallery, Violet spotted a mouselet walking a dog and asked her to suggest a spot in Chicago a book lover might enjoy. Oh, you should go to the Chicago Cultural Center, the mouse replied. It was the first public library in the city. The mouse gave them directions and the Thea sisters set out toward their next destination, the Chicago Cultural Center. It was a multi-story building that hosted numerous book presentations and cultural events. Inside, the Thea sisters admired the large stained glass Tiffany dome set into the ceiling. What a wonderful place, Violet exclaimed after they had explored the beautiful building. This has been such a fun morning, Paulina exclaimed. Where to now? Pam looked at the clock and smiled. According to my stomach, it's lunchtime, she said, and I already know exactly where to go. Chapter 3 Memories on the Road. To really get to know a new place, has to taste its typical dishes. That's why she took her friends to a restaurant where she knew she could sample a classic Chicago style pizza. Wow, Nikki exclaimed, wide eyed, as their server brought a steaming pie to their table. I've never seen a pizza like that before. That's because this is a deep dish pizza, Pamela said, smiling. It's baked in a deeper pan, giving the crust a tall edge. That means there's lots of room for extra cheese and a chunky tomato sauce. I've heard a lot about it and I can't wait to taste it. Yum, Colette said as she bit into a slice. The pizza looked more like a piece of pie than a flatbread style Italian pizza. This is delicious, Nikki added as she reached for a second piece of the pie. Once the Thea sisters had finished their pizza, it was Nikki's turn to choose their destination. She decided to ask their server for a suggestion. What's the perfect thing to do in Chicago for a mouse who loves the outdoors? Nikki asked. Well, on a sunny day like this, I would like to take a boat ride, she replied. What a possum idea, Nikki exclaimed. Shortly after that, the Thea sisters boarded a boat that sailed first on Lake Michigan and then down the Chicago River. Along the way, they admired the city's many beautiful buildings. Smile, Colette told her friends as she snapped a photo just before the boat went under one of Chicago's famous movable bridges. This is a great photo of all of us, Paulina said happily as she looked at the photo on Colette's phone. I'll print it out as soon as we get on the RV. Colette frowned. But how will you do that? She asked Paulina, a confused look on her snout. I don't think the RV we entered has a printer. Don't worry, Paulina revealed with a grin. I brought my own. It's the latest model of portable mini printers. I figured for a trip on the legendary Route 66, digital photographs just wouldn't do. Now we can create a real album of our memories on the road. What a fun idea, Wallet squeaked in response. When we get back to Mouseford Academy, we can show it to our friends. You should print one for each of us so we can carry it around in our wallets, Nikki said. Once back on shore, it was Paulina who suggested the last stop on their impromptu tour of Chicago. I don't need to ask for suggestions, Paulina admitted. During the boat ride, I overheard some tourists talking about the perfect spot to get a panoramic view of the entire city, Willis Tower. The Thea sisters headed for the skyscraper, which is famous for its sky deck on the 103rd floor. Wow! Violet exclaimed as she stepped out of the elevator. Look at that view! Colette pulled out her guidebook. It says here that beyond the lake you can see the states of Indiana, Michigan, and Wisconsin, she read. This really is an extraordinary view. But the excitement wasn't over. The Thea sisters noticed some special enclosed glass balconies that extended out more than 4 feet past the building, giving them a view of the Chicago as if they were suspended 1,353 feet in the air. That was quite a thrill, Colette said. Pamela glanced at her watch as they took the elevator back to the ground level. It's almost time to pick up the RV, she announced, but there's still a little time left for one last stop. Where is that? Paulina asked, intrigued. A place where we will get a very important photo for our album, Pam replied. The road sign that marks the start of the historic Route 66. Chapter 4 Let's Hit the Road. The long-awaited moment had finally arrived. After picking up the keys to the RV, the Thea sisters climbed aboard and officially began their all-American road trip. Leaving Chicago behind, the Mouselets headed southwest along Route 66. The skyscrapers of the city gave way to the plains of Illinois. Wow, Colette said, admiring the view out of the window. This countryside seems to go on forever. Get ready, Paulina squeaked. We are about to make our first stop. Welcome to Pontiac, Illinois, Pamela said as she parked the RV. The 5 friends hopped outside, excited to stretch their paws. They were ready to learn more about Route 66, so they headed straight for the red brick building that housed the Illinois Route 66 Hall of Fame and Museum. The building had once housed Pontiac's fire department, but it had since been converted into a museum dedicated to the history of Route 66. But the front door wouldn't open. It looks like it's closed, Nikki grumbled, disappointed. Violet looked up at the setting sun and then back down at the schedule they had plotted out weeks ago. According to our original itinerary, we were going to leave Chicago in the morning, she said. Since we left later than planned, we have missed out on seeing the museum. Paulina just shrugged. The beauty of making plans is that you can always make new ones, she said. Well said, sister, Pamela agreed, nodding. Why don't we spend the night here in Pontiac and visit the museum when it opens in the morning? Great idea, Colette agreed. In the meantime, let's get a picture of the five of us together. She had stopped right in front of a large mural dedicated to Route 66. She realized her perfect shot wasn't going to happen. If I try to take a selfie with all five of us, the entire mural won't fit, Colette said, sighing. And we can't use the timer because we would have to put the camera in the middle of the road, Violet added. But Colette wasn't going to give up so easily. She began looking around for someone who would take a picture of them. She finally spotted a brown-haired mouslet with a large backpack and a blue computer bag. Excuse me, Colette called out to her. Would you mind taking a picture of us? A picture? Sure, the mouslet replied as she stifled a big yawn. Just let me know when you are ready. The five friends had fun posing for the picture and thanked the mouse for her help. Then they headed to a local restaurant for dinner before ending their first day on the road with a good night's sleep in the RV. Bright and early the next morning, the Thea sisters were ready to resume their journey. But first, it's time for breakfast, Pamela announced as they walked into a coffee shop that smelled of fresh pancakes. Just as the mouselets sat down at a table, the door opened. The mouselet with the blue computer bag they had met the previous day walked in. Without noticing the Thea sisters, she headed straight for the table next to theirs, dropped into a booth, and sat there, crying. Paulina noticed and exchanged a glance with her friends. Then she leaned toward the table and spoke to the mouselet softly. Hi, do you remember us? She asked. We met yesterday when you took our photo. The stranger looked up and nodded sadly. We don't want to bother you, but you seem upset, Nikki said. Is everything okay? As tears fell down her cheeks, the mouse shook her head. Would you like to talk about it? Violet tried gently. The mouselet stared at the Thea sisters for a few moments in silence. Then she let out a sigh and began to tell her story. Chapter 5 An Unexpected Tale. The mouse with the blue computer bag was named Ali. She was the same age as the Thea sisters and, like them, had decided to plan a special trip across the United States that summer. But unfortunately for Ali, her journey was not going as planned. When I left Detroit, I had a very specific plan, she explained. I wanted to cross the United States from Detroit, Michigan to San Jose, California by bus. Along the way, I had planned to stop and visit the most famous cities along Route 66. But before I even got on the road, my schedule had already fallen apart. Thanks to a series of unexpected events, Ali had missed the bus in Detroit. She had to quickly change her tickets and then she had spent long hours in bus stations instead of enjoying her adventure. You poor thing, Colette remarked. You looked so tired yesterday. That's because I had just arrived in Pontiac after a very long day, Ali explained. Then her voice began to tremble, and this morning I did it again. I was so tired I didn't hear my alarm go off, and I missed the bus to St. Louis. The Thea sisters looked at the mouse sympathetically. They could only imagine how disappointed Ali must have been. You said you are going to San Jose, but Route 66 doesn't end there, Nikki pointed out, trying to change the subject. The route actually ends in Santa Monica. Yes, I know, Ali replied, but in 2 weeks I have an important appointment in the San Jose. My itinerary would have taken me there instead of to Santa Monica. With a plate of steaming pancakes in front of her, Ali explained that she wanted to be a video game programmer. She was going to try to make her dreams come true in San Jose. San Jose is thought of as the capital of Silicon Valley, Paulina said knowingly. She was really into computers, and so she knew all about that area of the country. A lot of computer companies have their headquarters there. That's right, Ali said, nodding as she poured a little maple syrup over her pancakes. And Level Up is one of those companies. Every year, they give young programmers the opportunity to present a new video game to a group of investors. The best project presented will become a real game. What an incredible opportunity, Pamela exclaimed. I know, Ali said, her eyes sparkling. In fact, I spent the whole year studying and working on my video game. That's why I thought I'd treat myself to a vacation before the presentation. But seeing how things are going, I think I'll head back home and just fly to California. The Thea sisters glanced at one another. The five friends could tell they were each thinking the same thing. It was Violet who finally spoke up on behalf of the group. What if we had a solution to your problem? Violet asked. Yes, we don't think you should give up on your trip, Nikki added. You can travel with us inside our comfortable RV, Pamela exclaimed with a big grin. Ali looked at the five mouselets in surprise. Really? She asked. Are you saying I can continue my trip with all of you? Of course, Colette replied. There's room for one more in the RV, and we have the same itinerary as you. We only have to add a little detour to get you to San Jose. Ali put down her fork and looked at the Thea sisters. California! Here we come! She shouted. Her eyes were filled with tears again, but this time they were tears of joy. She would be able to continue with her road trip, and this time she would be sharing it with five special new friends. So friends, only this much for today. I had a lovely time reading to you. We have read till chapter 5 today, and there are chapters around 20, so we'll complete it in 4 or 5 videos. So thank you, and to be up to date, please subscribe this channel. And if you want any specific book that you want me to read, you can comment it in the down below.